All right, and assuming that everything's working, we should be live now. How's it going, guys? In an ideal world, I shouldn't be hearing myself. I'm hoping I'm not able to hear myself. That would be awkward if that was the case. YouTube breaking is just kind of the norm for me nowadays. But that said, we are looking at Kent Hovind's Dumb Face, which is where we left off last time. Also, we have another guest on today. We have first of all, Raging Atheist has come back. He's got time today for us to tackle more of the movie that he's featuring in. So, here we are. How's it going, Nakatsuchi?
Hey, what's up, man?
Hey. We've also got Russ, the frustrated atheist, is here as usual. How's it going, Russ?
Oh, it's another day in paradise around here.
Oh, paradise for you and paradise for a Christian are very different. Theirs involves a level of slavery, I'm sure.
Yes, but theirs is just terrible. Just terrible.
Let's just say that in Donald Trump's voice. It's terrible. Just terrible.
Look, it's just terrible right now. Just terrible, okay? Okay? Just trust me.
All right, and then we got Sean, Atheist Rationale. How you doing today, Sean?
Doing pretty good, man. Excited to finally finish this movie. So we have about
Fingers
10 minutes
crossed.
left. Yeah, we haven't had the best luck of getting through even 5 minutes of this movie every stream so far. So,
well, the last time Matt Powell hopped on and called into the show and talked to us and Nakatsushi, so like that was I'd say that at least last time it was justifiable.
oh yeah, last stream was great.
All right, and then finally we have our guest today, as has been the normal. We have Skylar Fiction today. How's it going, Skylar?
Hey, what's up, everybody? Thanks for having me on today, man. I'm excited to do this.
No problem. And then I'm also going to be on Skylar Fiction's channel at some point here in the near future talking about my interesting research and fun times with Mike Winger, if we want to really call them fun times. Assuming you're still willing to have me on for that.
Oh, no, we're definitely going to do that. I'm thinking very, very soon, next couple of weeks. We've just been, Dr. Josh and I, who's pretty much become my co-host of my show.
I've noticed.
I've been swamped. Oh, yeah, dude, he's just such a smart dude and just it really benefits me more than anything, and I just really appreciate him. So it's been really great. We've just been swamped. But the fact, like that conversation you had with him when you guys were on the Non Sequitur show, and I knew from watching that his videos about homosexuality, especially from trying to argue from a secular perspective, were just full of it. I knew it was full of shit, basically. And I'm so glad that you took the time to actually go into the papers that he was quoting, the sources, and just blatantly call him out on it. So, and he was so, you could just see the frustration when you do that. Yeah.
It was kind of agitating to hear him use those sources because they're the sources that Steven Anderson used in a sermon. So, like, I had already done that research for the most part. The only research that he brought that was new was the Regnerus study. And luckily, a friend of mine also sent me a bunch of stuff from the Southern Poverty Law Center about the Regnerus study. And then even if you look on Wikipedia, you can see that his peers held issue and umbrage with it. So it's just like, that was the one new thing he brought that Steven Anderson didn't bring. And if you're bringing all the same guns that Steven Anderson brings to a fight, maybe you should probably switch to a different armory.
Yeah, I agree. If you're taking moves from Steven Anderson, that's certainly a problem. And I think too. I think he knew some of his source material may not have been the best by the way he reacted. I mean, I don't know. Maybe that's a little too harsh a criticism, but by the simple like throwing your hands up, like, well, I'm not prepared to talk about this kind of deal. I don't know. That was telling to me. It's rare that I will ever have a conversation with someone asked me about a specific topic I talked about or had questions about my opinions on something, and I'll say something like, well, I'm not ready to talk about this. I don't know.
Yeah.
He spends 3 videos doing it, 3 1-hour videos. It seems like you should be somewhat prepared at this point.
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
But I asked him if he wanted to have a live conversation about all of that, and he said he wouldn't have time because he's swamped with everything else. So I said, okay, that's fine. I'll just do a live response to your video. That way my opinion is out there and your opinion is out there, and if you want to have that conversation later, that's neat. So I did that on Thursday. Also, speaking of Dr. Josh, who is your de facto co-host now, had him on for the second Biblical Gender Roles episode on Friday. Every single time that I look at that website, I feel like I need a shower. It's not the neatest one. And then also recently, I know that Nakatsushi had an episode talking about all of the crap that Matt Powell clipped out of his video.
Yeah. I put that out last Friday or last Thursday. I put it out a little early. And I still have Ian Fisher and Matt Powell coming and calling me a liar. And I'm like, well, why aren't you addressing the fact that I just proved you misedited your movie? And in fact, I got an email from Matt today that was pretty hilarious. Their new attack is Aaron Rod threw me under the bus, so I should just become a Christian and stop being an atheist.
Yeah.
No, the way that
it gets better.
that's stupid. Like, okay, if there's a thing that we do in the skeptic community a lot, is it seems like some of us might throw each other under the bus, but really what happens is that we fact check each other. If one of us says something stupid, someone else is going to come in and say it. Unfortunately, on your end, the way they clipped you made it sound like you were saying dumb stuff, and that's why you even had a video afterwards where you're like, no, based on how they clipped me, I can't say anything about what Aaron said.
And I just filmed a video responding to a guy, Brett Keane.
Oh, the manatee.
Yeah, and he that's his thing is Aaron Rod threw you under the bus, and I'm like, dude, for one, I am a straight atheist, and for two, yeah, I mean, once I actually watched the episode, there's nothing to be offended by, and I find it funny that all these Christians are offended because they would be offended, and you're trying to project it on me.
Yeah, it's really frustrating. So when somebody says, "Oh, Aaron threw me under the bus," I have an email from Aaron correcting an entire point in one of my videos. You know what happened when he corrected me on that point? I went into the video and I put in a disclaimer, and then I had, that's what that amounts to.
And I had Aaron Rod comment on my second video, and thank me for my graciousness, which just shows you a lot about Aaron Rod's character. So I mean, they can say what they. I thought it was pretty cool.
Speaking of that, once Matt got my email, which apparently Matt didn't have access to my email before somehow, which is only because he's never emailed me. But he sent me an email recently that I posted on Twitter where he was asking me for Aaron Raw's email address so that he could contact Aaron. Granted, Aaron gave me permission to give him his email address, so if Matt doesn't have a debate or actually have a live discussion with Aaron at some point, then it's his funeral. All the evidence is out there that he has all the information he needs to contact Aaron now. So I just thought it was funny when he was asking me for Aaron's personal email address, and I'm like, dude, if Aaron wants me to give that to you, that's fine. But if you're not gonna get that yourself, I'm pretty sure he's provided you a multitude of ways to contact him.
Mm-hmm.
It's not very hard to get a hold of Aaron, at least for talking.
Under Nakatsuchi's video where Matt Powell was commenting and talking about, he's like, all these atheists would just turn their backs on you if you turned Christian type of thing. And he started saying how he would that all they've been doing is accepting him with arms wide open. All I said was, unless he's gay, right? Because if he's gay, then the government should kill him.
Yeah, I mean, everything they say is just backwards. It's to pretend like I could tell you right now that most Christians would turn their back on Matt Powell and his ideology. I know that for a fact.
I really want to mention something. So you guys are talking about how Powell's been saying this, like, you need to come to Christianity. All the atheists are going to turn their backs against you type thing, right? Well, Powell has been talking with Brett Keane a lot. I mean, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Brett Keane's story. He's a real
turncoat
beggar. Well, yeah, definitely a turncoat. But back in the day, he used to beg for money, lie about certain situations that him and his family were in. And when he was an atheist on YouTube, he only was able to get $100 from a couple of people. But as soon as he flipped his story to Christianity, he seemed to get more donations. And
that's funny. He actually was an atheist. In my video, responded to him today. I'm like, dude, I don't think you were an atheist.
So Brett Keane, in order to slam atheists, tries to say that none of them care about him and his family, and that must be all atheists everywhere, even though that's just not how it works.
No.
And it seems like Powell's kind of adopting that philosophy after their conversations, and I think it's kind of funny.
Yeah, if he wants to use that as an anecdote, then I guess we can just fight an anecdote with an anecdote and point out when Wonder Lady lost her fridge and Don and Mr. Atheist and a bunch of the community came together and got that taken care of within like a week. You could point out when RJ needed equipment and we got that taken care of in a matter of 2 hours.
Just recently, Godless Ione was doing a charity for somebody who was can't remember their name, but he helped somebody who was in risk of like losing their power and stuff, and a lot of the community got together to help him too.
So yeah, it's funny when the only evidence they have is an anecdote. Speaking of anecdotal evidence, we do have the wonderful face of sorry, I can't say doctor with a straight face when referring to Hovind. We have Dr. Dino here, staring at us. Do we want to go and hit the play button and start suffering?
Let's do it.
They've already decided. Don't confuse them. It wouldn't matter. Evidence doesn't matter.
Projection.
Doesn't matter. Quote of the day.
So we have blood of a Tyrannosaurus rex that was discovered inside this grave of the dinosaur. Now, if it was 65 million years extinct or before us, how did that blood remain the same in an open-air environment?
Again, I don't know. This is not a talking point of yours that I'm familiar with, so I didn't research it.
So I'm fairly certain that Russ has researched this one before.
Yes, I have. Because if there's anything that people do know about me, I love fossils. And the thing is this particular thing is the person who he doesn't bring up goes by the name of Mary Schweitzer, who is a Christian who had found something that represents it, but she did not flat out say that this is blood, because the thing is it all depends on what you mean, because this here is actually it's the iron that's left behind during the fossilization process that replaces what was once blood.
Just the iron that's left from the blood at that point.
Yeah. And so to sit there and completely misrepresent this, even Mary Schweitzer, who found it, said, I get sick and tired of creationists misrepresenting what I've said and what I've found. And this it gets under my skin too, because it's clearly not blood, like as we see it today, as what's bumping in us. So,
you know what?
Not to mention that wasn't the size of the sample that they had way smaller than a blood cell to begin with. If I remember incorrectly.
That part I don't remember. That part I don't remember. But the thing is like I said, is that hell, you can even go onto Apologia's channel where he had Mary Schweitzer on there, and she says, whenever he says, "Was this blood?" she's like, "You're going to have to define by what you mean by blood," and she breaks it down on why it's not blood in the sense that Matt Powell is trying to represent it as.
No,
yeah, he's looking for some spilled
forgot
blood,
what protein it is,
but he's not going to find any spilled blood. He's going to find, tiny flecks of iron. And last I checked, iron is something that we find everywhere that doesn't degrade that fast. But, that's just me. I would imagine, I don't know what channel it would be best to do something like this on. Maybe something like Non Sequitur Show, but getting like the best of misrepresented clips from this movie and then finding the experts who he's citing to just all be a part of a panel and just in sequence, each one of them goes, that doesn't mean what you think it means. Just at each one of those.
Hey, just as an aside, kind of off point, I don't know if any of you guys know what Ian Fisher looks like, but is that Ian Fisher?
I don't know. The only
I think that's him. That's the guy that I was talking about that had his glasses on the whole time. I think that might be Ian right there.
So I always thought that Ian was like a 12-year-old because of how he acts.
I honestly had the impression that he was younger too.
Like,
so yeah, maybe it's not then. But when I was like, dude, are you the guy wearing? This is the guy that I thought was Ian, and I just wanted to make that. I just wanted to ask since we happened to stop him.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and do a thing. I'm fairly certain he's not. No, he's not in the chat right now, but if Ian does appear in the chat, then we'll go ahead and ask him if that's the case. Then again, the last time we asked him a direct question, he ran from the chat and got his big buddy Matt.
Yeah.
Not that I would mind that happening either.
Oh yeah, he's still all over my comment section.
Of
It's
course he
kinda
is.
crazy.
Of course he is. For a group of people who claim that they're not gay, they sure are obsessed with one dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm giving you that it's a possibility that your God existed. It's just not a possibility that the stories are accurate because they've been disproven.
We know that humanists don't believe the Bible, right? So why would we believe what the humanists say?
Wait a minute. Does he not realize that humanism actually, you can have a humanist Christian? That's very possible.
Well, I noticed they're trying to lump humanist and atheist together, and it's a completely different set of ideologies.
Oh
This is actually kind of something I want to get into. Yeah, they seem, like he was saying, they seem to lump a lot of these ideologies together. In one video that I was just watching of Steven Anderson's, I believe he calls it the Church of Liberalism. He claims that colleges are trying to profess this atheist religion on people, and it teaches, evolution and humanism, and you just don't go to college because they're gonna brainwash you out of Christianity.
Well, especially considering that humanism is typically portrayed as an alternative to religions, but this is the same group of people who will tell you that Christianity isn't a religion, it's a relationship. So there's no, if you want to misdefine Christianity, then we can just lump humanism with Christianity in now, because you've done that. You've taken that double-edged sword and bitten the wrong half.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to argue if you got a beef with humanists, then you really need to check yourself.
Figure out what species you're a part of.
Yeah, I mean,
it looked like
from talking to Matt Powell quite a bit, I've noticed that he kind of has these false, not just about religion, but false assumptions about our reality and things, how things work. Like when I talked to him, he started talking about how just how you say, he was talking about universities like to indoctrinate people and, do all this kind of fun stuff. But he had the same kind of idea with government and gun laws. When I talked to him, he's like, well, they keep restricting our gun rights. And I was like, Matt, they haven't restricted any gun rights in 15 to 20 years. I was like, what are you talking about? Yeah.
He's 22 or 23, right? And
yeah, he's super young.
He's even came out and told people that he's been in this IFB school circuit his whole life. I know there's this period of time where he said he was hanging around atheists, but it was still.
Oh, it was when he was 10 years old.
Yeah.
So he
was hanging around 10-year-old atheists.
Yeah.
Even worse. He said that he was atheist whenever he was 7.
Yeah.
But either way, he was still in a IFB school system, is what I was trying to get at. And a lot of the documentaries that they have kind of have been pushing that sort of ideology that you're talking about. For instance, they have the God of the New World Order movie that just came out a few weeks ago by Ben the Baptist, one of the main cult members of the new IFB, or I guess he's a brother, not a pastor. But anyways, yeah, in this movie, they talk about how the I can't remember the name of it, but it's a specific organization is trying to establish a one world government, and
well, that's just the same shit that the Zeitgeist movie was trying
and are pushing
to push towards.
Yeah, trying to push that same ideology of the liberal church from colleges. It's all kinds of weird.
And then Zero says, for $7.07, do they know that they're being absurdly dishonest in these documentaries, or do you think that they believe the lies they tell? I think it's a mixture of both. I honestly think, as ironic as this is, the original point of Pascal's wager was an attempt to change behavior until you believe something. That was the
United
original
Nations.
purpose.
That was the word I was looking for.
Okay.
They have this huge conspiracy about the United Nations trying to take over the world.
Okay, that sounds like that's just the same thing Jehovah's Witnesses do. They call it the one of the heads of the beast.
Yeah, they're real big on that.
But what I was getting at with Pascal's wager was originally a behavior modification idea to try to get beget belief from it. I think that these documentaries might kind of be that, is that they know deep down that some of the stuff they're saying is just wrong, but it's like so buried deep down under indoctrination that they truly do still believe these things.
Yeah, I often talk like they have to see all the information if they're looking this, and so they have to know the other side of the story, and I think they're being disingenuous. But I think Sean is right that the indoctrination is so just deep. Like if this has been your whole life, and let me tell you, I've met Matt Powell's dad. I highly doubt that Matt Powell was hanging out with atheists when he was 10 years old, because his dad is deeply indoctrinated, just like he is.
Well, the more outrageous their testimony, I think that's the word that they use, the better they're looked at by their community.
I think the indoctrination just really comes into play, and as they're reading all of the science, they just automatically dismiss it as something of Satan, because that's what their indoctrination tells them to do.
Yeah, pretty much. Like all the information that they find to the contrary of their position must come from Satan, is part of the conspiracy. And it bothers me because I actually used to be big into conspiracies and like the type of person who would like go and watch Alex Jones unironically. So like stuff like this just really bothers me. But that's probably because the worst image I've ever seen is the one in the mirror. So that's just me.
Yeah,
just about some of the titles to their documentaries here, like Iceland, Nation of Scandinavian Bastards, Japan, Kamikaze Nation documentary, Marxist Lucifer King, Psychopath Reprobates,
Marxist Lucifer King,
Bible documentary, Thou Shalt Teach Them, which is all about not going to public school to avoid,
This seems to be a thing with evangelical Christians. I do a crazy cult section on my page, and one of the crazy cults that I cover is called the Three Hearts Church, and they're an evangelical Christian church, and they believe all these right-wing conspiracy theories. I do believe that Alex Jones and this whole fake news phenomenon really has swung outside of just politics and has influenced this community, because I do a lot of work on it. It's pretty scary, and it's funny, it's entertaining at the same time.
Yeah, especially when you get narratives from them, like the anti-vax narrative, which like literally kills kids.
Oh wait, I think that's something that they do too. Let me check up on Paul Wittenberger, Framing the World. He has a few of his own specific documentaries that they push around. Oh, never mind. It's just chemtrails, something about what they're putting in the water, and fluoride.
It's funny.
What they're putting in the water is turning the frogs gay.
See, what's funny is that the frogs gay thing, it turns out that it was actually messing with their with some of their sexual organs. So like there's like a modicum of truth to it, just like there's a modicum of truth to the chemtrail thing. There was an attempt to, I'm trying to remember what it is. There was a paper that I was given by one of my friends who's really into this shit, that apparently a few years ago there were some planes that were sent up, and there was like experimental chaff that was sent up in an effort to try to combat climate change, which is funny because if you send up chaff in an effort to combat climate change, then you have to admit that climate change is happening. And most conspiracy theorists will not admit that that's a thing that's happening. But he said, "Look there, I've been telling you chemtrails are real the whole time." And I'm like, dude, this is saying these experiments started in 2015. You've been saying that chemtrails have been a thing for decades. So it doesn't work like that. Yes, let's just say that everything in this is true. Cool. Then chaff trails have been real for 3 years. You're still wrong. Stop being wrong.
Yeah. I'm not going to put it past our government to try to kill its own people, but I just don't think they're competent enough to pull that. If you've this off for so long. Yeah.
If you've ever been a moderator on any project ever in your life, people are not that organized.
Yeah.
There'd be way too many people involved for it to ever run smoothly. Jeez, I just can't talk today.
Speaking of not talking, Skylar's been pretty quiet.
No, I talk all day. I feel bad. I don't want to be the one. I don't want to take over the channel. This is good discussion, guys. This is great.
Well, I mean, you're welcome to talk as much as you want. You are a guest on today, so.
No, this is great. I've been kind of like, and I feel sort of bad because I feel like I'm sort of to blame for all this attention that he has because of that, that video kind of going a little viral with him in it. I will say that I've learned a lot about him in the last year or so. I've had a lot of it's weird. I've actually had family members of his. I may be close friends. Some of them tell me they're family. Some of them say they're friends of his. And they kind of write to me very sympathetically to help me try to understand why Matt is the way that he is, and that he's really not that bad of a guy. He's just basically been indoctrinated.
That's what you say about your racist uncle.
No, I agree. And it's a weird thing to say, right? And there comes a certain level of where I feel, there's a difference, I guess, between someone I feel more empathy for, I guess, than I feel just anger towards, right? Like there are people that I engage with that are just assholes, just miserable. Like Ben the Baptist is a great example, one of Matt Powell's buddies, right? Really scummy, has a lot of just internal rage underneath the skin, hardcore anti-homosexual. And then compared to someone like Matt, where I really do have a little more empathy for him because I feel like he's just so misguided and so naive, and that it's not that he's I don't think he wants to be a bad person, quote unquote, bad person. But it's just when you're young, you've been taught something your whole entire life. And I know, personally, luckily I grew up in a very moderate Christian home, but I can only imagine from the moment that you're born where it's just these irrational beliefs are drilled into you. It's like racism in a sense, where if I grew up in a family where every time someone referred to a black person, they used the N-word. And all they did was tell me about how bad black people were and how, this, that, and everything else. How hard it would be for me to unfuck that from my mind. So with Matt, I feel like it might happen one day. It may not. And maybe it's my naiveness. Maybe I'm giving him a lot more credit than possibly he deserves. But I think a lot of the shit, the shady stuff we talk about here, has less to do with his Christianity and his beliefs, more to do with him being a young, naive bastard. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, I think
Skylar, it has to do with the fact that you've given yourself up to reprobate mind. This is,
oh my God.
This is common. This is what's gonna happen.
I think what most of it boils down to is that if you this is something that we see common in a lot of fiction stories, which is weird because we're going to talk about something in real life. But there's actually a character archetype of basically the rebel fighting for the wrong cause. I think Matt sees himself as the counterculture rebel, who's fighting for his cause. It just happens that it's invariably the wrong one. It's the one that undermines human value. It's the one that undermines scientific progress. It's the one that undermines free thought. It's unfortunate because if somebody like that, now granted, I don't think that his cognitive reasoning skills are all the way there. I'm not saying that he's got a mental illness or anything, but I am saying that I think the indoctrination prevents him from taking things to their logical conclusion. He takes them to his conclusion. I think that if he were well learned in the way the world actually works, not the way that it works through the lens of the NIFB, he might actually be a good person and could be a force for good. Unfortunately, we find him on the other end of the fence.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly with what Skylar said. I was very angry, and not so much angry that he misrepresented me because I knew that going into it, but just angry that Matt's not who he wants to be. And I agree with the indoctrination. Matt truly sees that he thinks that he's this honest person. And I was really hoping that I'd be able to show his dishonesty, and he's just not seeing it. He's not seeing it at all because he's still corresponding with me, and he just doesn't see it. And I just don't think the indoctrination allows him to. And I went from being angry, especially because when he called in, that was the first time I had spoken to Matt since the movie. So it kind of hit me, and I think I got a little angry. But then I just started thinking about it, and Skylar's right. you can't fault a person for their indoctrination. Like, I can't fault a child because he was raised by his dad to say the N-word and to think that black people are something that they're not, because that's his dad. That your parents are your heroes. So Skylar's right, and that's something that I've been trying to do on my channel, because I do attack evangelical fundamentals pretty hard. But I really am trying to start saying, all right, these people are indoctrinated. Let's attack the indoctrination. But I'm not going to be mad at Matt Powell anymore, because I think Matt Powell thinks he's doing the right thing. His indoctrination just doesn't allow him to see the truth.
It's not an easy thing, by the way. It's a really good answer by you and thoughtful, because it's not an easy thing to do that, right? It's hard when you have someone who's misrepresenting you and lying and being dishonest about you to take the higher ground, basically. A lot of people, I get the question often when I talk about like morality with people, and they're like, why do you go and you go to such harsh things in the Bible and you force them to talk about it? I'm not doing it to make them look bad, right? I'm not doing it so like, hey, so everybody laughs at you and says, look at this guy defending whatever atrocity or something. It's the goal is for them to say it out loud and feel uncomfortable in that moment. So hopefully that they can start questioning it themselves and start thinking about, hey, why does this make me feel uncomfortable? Why do I have to defend this position, right? Why can't I take those positive attributes that I also believe in God and, maybe leave some of these negative ones and maybe think that maybe it's me, the way that I'm looking at this scripture, and it's me that's coming up with the wrong interpretation of it and being forced to defend these positions. So yeah, I think it is a difficult situation, and having like, whether it's a debate channel where you're arguing with theists or Christians, and trying to be fair and trying to, when you're, like I said, this week, man, when I had the conversation with Vocab Malone this week, I was angry after that. Like, I felt I was mistreated. I thought he was one of the most disingenuous people I've ever spoken to. And that says a lot for the amount of people I've talked to here on YouTube. And I was mad, and not mad at his arguments, because there really were no arguments, to be frank with you, but like mad at how he behaved and the childishness and the goal of him to try to make me look bad for no other reason than I'm an atheist. Right. So I need to, what I'm trying to do is I've got to make sure that if I'm going to have a problem with it, I need to make sure I'm doing the same thing. But I'm not just going out to make these theists look bad, these Christians look bad. It's about the argument. It's about their beliefs. And it's about, maybe getting them to evolve a little bit and have a better understanding of the world as a whole, I guess.
Yeah, I agree there. There was a conversation I had with Craig Reed and S.J. Thomason at one point. And the point that we all agreed on at the end of the conversation was that even if they end up being right, even if there is an afterlife, and even if it's the Christian afterlife, we all admit that we only have this particular life once. Mm-hmm. We only get this one once, and we only get this earth once, because the afterlife is going to be somewhere else, if that is the case, if there even is one. So why wouldn't we owe it to ourselves to make this place as good as possible when we leave? There's no reason not to.
Yeah, that's the thing I've never understood about them is, God will fix it. Look, I mean, didn't he leave us to be the caretakers?
Yeah.
Well, you see, the only reason is because of reasons, guys. It's
the reasons are reasons. Well, let's listen to Pastor Tom Gopal's reasons.
That's about the Bible.
The Bible says
that God
hangs the earth upon nothing, that the earth hangs on nothing. The Bible obviously says in Isaiah chapter 40, is he that sitteth upon the circle of the earth. So the Bible talks about the earth being a circle. It talks about the fact that it's hanging on nothing.
The circle's not a
globe.
globe.
It talks about the
Galileo
fact that when
existed.
Christ comes, in some places it's going to be day, some places it's going to be night, in that day and that night. Because, of course, on our spherical earth, parts of the earth are experiencing night while we're experiencing day, and vice versa.
It's vague enough to sound scientific, but it's not.
How did Job know about the equator?
He didn't. That's not talking about the equator.
I'm so glad you paused it there because that was perfect. How did Job know about the equator?
I don't know. How did your mom know to make you a breakfast that didn't contain arsenic? Because she wasn't fucking stupid.
Maybe he was talking about the Lion King and the Circle of Life in the Bible. You know?
Circle of Life. How did Disney know about the equator?
Well, how did the Bible know about Disney?
More prophetic.
So pathetic. It even shows it's proof. Even if it's inaccurate, but it's still true, that just shows that the Bible is even more perfect. Wait, what? No. Shut the fuck up, standing for truth. Sorry, I just had to throw somebody out under the bus there because that's shit that I've heard them say.
Oh my god.
Sorry, I don't like dumb shit SpongeBob.
They've been commenting on my page lately.
Yeah, of course. No, dumb shit SpongeBob is dumb shit SpongeBob.
Yeah.
I normally... Sorry, Russ, you go ahead.
I was just saying that he recently was on a debate on Modern Day Debate with, I don't know the other guy. I've never seen him before.
Was it Jackson Wade? I know he was debating a lot.
No, it wasn't with Jackson. Jackson actually did some faux pas during that debate.
Yeah, but this guy, from what I heard, I mean, it was funny because there were so many answers that he gave him that were just complete and utter, brilliant answers. And it just, I don't see how, like, for instance, he sits there and goes, of course, Standing for Truth brings up this stupid genetic entropy thing. And he goes, and whenever he finally gets around to answering that part of the question, he goes, and genetic entropy, he goes, as far as I know, that is an idea that was brought up by this person who is a creationist or ID component. He's like, really, they're both one and the same, but one of these guys, and he just doesn't have any published work, only in creationist things, and he was giving all these detailed answers. I was like, this is amazing. I love this.
The problem that I have, like, if we refer back to the Jackson Wheat Standing for Truth debate, the problem is that Jackson was right during, like, that entire debate, but he failed to address any of Standing for Truth's points, and it's like, Standing for Truth will undermine his own position simply by speaking. All you have to do is address his points. Just let him say the things he's going to say, and he'll shoot himself in the foot quite handedly. But that's, I don't know. My only problem with James's channel, I love James. I love Modern Day Debate. I like that channel. I think he's a great person. I just think that his standard for who he will have on his channel is probably a little low. Considering that Nephilim Free and Standing for Truth have dedicated spots constantly on that channel, I think the standards are quite low.
It seems that Cat Theist Rationale has joined us.
What was that, Skylar?
I was going to say, I love James. He's a cool dude. What I will tell you that they've been trying to set up, me and him have been trying, just due to schedules, it's been tricky, to come on and do one of those, what do you call it? Or it's just me and a bunch of theists, basically. In one room. But one of the things he wrote me, he was like, hey, we're looking for this date. And we're going to, I think the basic topic was, is the Bible rational? And he writes to me and he tells me, he's like, hey, the debaters want to know if we can kind of limit the scope a little bit and just stay with New Testament.
No,
I'm like,
no, the fuck we can't.
I was like, absolutely not. I was like, I'll tell you what, I'll limit the scope and we'll stay with Old Testament. We'll see how that goes. He hasn't written back yet, but I was like, "What do you like? Limit the scope? We're not going to like. You're not going to allow me."
If we limit the scope to the New Testament, then Jesus isn't Messiah because he's not Messiah without the prophecies of the Old Testament. There's no parables of Noah without the Old Testament. If you want to limit the scope, you can't just limit it to the part of your book that says the less egregious things.
Yes.
Sorry, no.
I point this comment out in the chat by Jack Fisher. He says, not wanting to worry anyone about biblical intervention, but one of the hosts turned into a cat.
Yahweh turned me into a cat. I got better.
Got better.
I'm back.
The circle of the earth. Well, he knew that because God was telling him what to write. It wasn't man's writing, it's God's writing.
Isn't it? So, small point. I don't want to hold on to this point for too long, but isn't it interesting how in situations like this, God can do all the things that man can't do, but all the things that man is capable of doing, God has to do through man. It's a requisite. He has to write through man. Why do you have to write through man? You're God. You're omnipotent. You could do anything. Just drop the book down.
Do you want me to read the super chat in
Sure.
Donald Trump voice?
Go ahead and read it in Donald Trump's voice.
All you need in this life is ignorance and confidence, and then success is sure. Mark Twain.
Yay. Yeah, Donald Trump is definitely the best voice for that.
So when people say, oh, the Genesis account's inaccurate, the Earth couldn't possibly be around 6,000 years old, that's crazy. It's been scientifically proven again and again that the Earth is young.
What?
And, just because somebody makes a claim
No.
with a straight look on their face doesn't
No, the
mean that
fuck it
that's going to be
hasn't.
the truth.
I'm so tired of hearing people say scientifically proven. That's for math. Stop the fucking category
Yes.
errors. Secondly,
Yes.
it's not been scientifically proven. Let me just accept that that's correct for like half a fucking second. It's not been scientifically proven the Earth is young. If it was, radiometric dating wouldn't be a field. Stop. If it was true, then the math behind the speed of light is wrong. Stop.
Right.
Scientists who go about teaching that evolution is a fact of life are great con men, and the story they are telling may be the greatest hoax ever. In explaining evolution, we do not have one iota of fact.
The common cold. Sorry, I had to give one iota of fact.
This is Ben the Baptist's portion, I believe.
Yeah.
Tell by that voice.
You're not giving that other side of the equation any room to breathe.
Well, there is no other side of the equation. That's why they call them the missing links.
It's, oh my God, no, there's no.
The missing
Oh my
links is a misnomer. Stop it.
Yes.
It's like you have. Okay. So.
Well.
I couldn't hear who said well.
That was me. I was just going to say that that's coming from the same people that say that transitional fossils don't exist, while every single fossil is a transitional fossil. So
You're a
it's not that
transitional
far.
form. You exist as a transitional form. The fact that your pinky toe is atrophying shows that you're a transitional form. The fact that you have a beard instead of a full body of hair shows that you're a transitional form. You're still in the process of transitioning. The only reason that we've kept facial hair, as far as I know, is because it aids in reproduction, because it's considered attractive. And that's all evolution gives a shit about, is reproduction. So if something looks attractive, then you're going to be sought after for your genes. That's what evolution gives a shit about. That's all it cares about.
And their answer for that is fucking a part of macroevolution. They say, well, speciation, that's part of microevolution.
No,
and
speciation is macroevolution, you dumb shits, and it doesn't happen over 2,000 years.
Exactly.
I don't remember. That's part of the segment that I don't have, so I don't really remember the full context of that. But I do know that I thoroughly crushed him on this part of our conversation, and he would dance around Lucy and the what was it called, the Millennial Man, I believe the name is. But I gave him certain individual cases where missing links have been found, and they just dance around it, and they always claim, well, that's a forgery, or they found Lucy scattered all over, which is just not true. It's not accurate. Well, they know about the missing links. They know that evolution is no longer a theory, that it's been proven time and time again. And that's why they go out of their way to debunk every single missing link finding that we've ever had and call it a fraud. And they look at everything that they can do to do that.
If I can offer one correction real quick before you go, Sean. So evolution is still a theory, because theory is actually the highest level something can be in science. It's no longer a hypothesis.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's been proven, and they go out of their way to
try to undermine something that's fact.
To mar the evidence that proves it.
Now, I just wanted to point out something from this movie earlier, because you were just talking about Lucy. There was although they didn't directly say that Lucy was a hoax due to their phrasing when the scene popped up on the screen.
Matt told me that personally.
The way they. Wait, did he tell you personally that Lucy was a hoax?
Oh yeah.
Oh, well, I guess that kind of justifies that screen then, because the way they have it written is they have a paragraph about something being a hoax, and then Lucy and the picture of Lucy is right next to it. And look further in, it's not exactly what they're talking about, but the editing is there and the way they're.
According to Matt Powell, Lucy was found pretty much all over Africa. Like, it wasn't the same spot, and they put all these different bones together to make a skeleton.
So the way
crazy.
Lucy actually was formed was the fact that most of her, the great majority of all of her bones were found in the one cave. However, about a mile away, they found a knee that they then determined was part of the same species, and just added it to Lucy because they were trying to because in one retrospect they believed that what could have happened was an animal carried it off, but it was for more or less for them to have a visual on a more more complete structure. And then later on we found more Australopithecus afarensis. So I mean, they always go after Lucy because Lucy being the first one we found, but we found more, and the ones that we have found have been even more complete than Lucy was.
Yeah, and that's what they don't include. They mar the facts about Lucy, and then they refuse to admit that this has been proven time and time again.
Well, I just want to jump back to Stephen Hassan's Buy-It model on information control, deliberately withheld and distort information. I mean, we already know that they generate and use propaganda pretty extensively, especially on YouTube here, given all of their sermons and documentaries. But, and where was I going with this? It only makes sense for them to leave out a lot of the information. I mean, it's accessible right there on Google. They can probably find it. Just
these are people who've never used the Google Scholar search in their life, I'm sure.
Yeah.
If you tell them that that's a thing they can do, they'll be like, "Oh, that's real interesting. I'll get back to you on that."
You can search research papers on Google.
They'll never get back to you on it.
We could safely include Nephilim Free in on all this, right? He's basically in the same camp as them, right?
I wouldn't say in the same cult. He's a young Earth creationist, and he probably believes most of this dumb shittery. But I wouldn't safely say that he's part of the camp, only because I don't know.
Yeah. But he agrees with more or less along the same lines as far as Lucy and all the other stuff goes. And one of Nephi, Nephi is the type of person who. I watched one of his streams that he was doing where he was trying to debunk quote unquote scientific papers. And his source that he brings up was a Fox News website. And I was like, oh my God, this isn't even secondary fucking sources. This is like the third source. Oh my God. I was like, you can't honestly believe that you can use this as a source.
I want to send. Can we make a fund at some point? Send Nephi to college, just to send him to a place that's going to actually eviscerate him for his terribly shoddy method of citing sources.
I want to. I think this would be amazing because they'd be like, okay, let's see your sources. And he pulls them up and
brings up Fox News. This is my source.
Right? Be like, no. You're just banned from the class. Period. Just go. Just go.
Like, nah. I don't want to talk about Nephi anymore.
I don't blame you.
I can't watch more than 2 minutes of him speaking. I turn it off. He's the most frustrating person I've ever listened to.
I haven't dived down that rabbit hole yet. I'm lucky.
No.
I don't have enough ibuprofen to dive down that rabbit
hole.
Well,
let's just say I was in a discussion with him about the flood, and we got onto the Grand Canyon, and his whole entire argument for why this couldn't happen due to erosion is, look at the rocks, they all point to the sky.
The rocks all point to the sky.
At the top of the canyon, all the rocks point to the sky. That can't be explained by erosion.
What?
I was like, do you understand what erosion is? I mean, like, really?
Hey, I'm sorry, guys. I've got to run. I guess my kid's not feeling well. They need me to pick him up from school a little early. I apologize.
Yeah,
dude, so sorry. This was so much fun.
Oh, yeah.
Dude, and seriously, I'll contact you soon. We'll have you on. Thank you
Skylar,
just for
I
having me
wanna
on
be
the show
back
today.
No problem. Understandable. You gotta take care of your kids before you gotta take care of Matt.
Yeah. I appreciate it. At least I made an hour with you guys. Sorry. You guys have a good night, all right? I appreciate you.
Will do.
You too, man.
Take care, man.
It's proof that maybe something terraformed this planet to tune it precisely.
He's gonna use that as if it was an
oh my god,
that you didn't
that
have.
was a cliffhanger. That was a cliffhanger because I kind of understand where you're going with that, Nakasushi, because the thing is the thing of the tuning part could have been explained by natural means and things like that. But I guarantee you, he was not going to at all let you have that out. And am I somewhat correct on that?
Yeah, well, that's another point of the conversation, that he's making absolutes. So he's saying that the moon is this, and it absolutely proves that, that something made the conditions necessary for life. And I'm like, no, it does. It proves nothing. All it proves is that the moon is there and it's vital towards life. It could have been a plethora of possibilities, and quite a bit of what I like to try to do with creationists is play with them on aliens, because one of the things that I say is that God himself, by the very definition of God, is an alien. God wasn't born on Earth. He's not from Earth. That means he's an alien. So I play with aliens a lot, and it makes them really, really mad. So I'm basically giving him an answer that's outside of the realms of possibility that God did it, but I'm also trying to get under his skin.
Yeah, what's funny is that I actually know somebody in real life that goes with the whole God was an ancient alien thing, like legitimately believes it, not just takes it.
I think it's a fun story, I think it's a possibility, but I think it's, as vague a possibility probably as God.
Yeah. My only problem is that, I think that it's an interesting idea. It's not one that I particularly espouse, obviously.
It's fun to think about.
It's fun to think about. It's just really agitating when you get somebody that legitimately thinks that, and you're like, okay, let's go back to reality for a little bit. It's comfortable there.
And I really just don't get the argument that, the moon is proof of God's existence. Like I said, it could have been a number of things. And the fact that our moon is bigger than it should be, that's one of their arguments, is our moon is bigger than it should be. And it's obviously a moon from a much bigger planet than Earth, and blah, blah, blah. I mean, like say, even if something brought that moon there, that's not proof that God exists. They claim proof when there is none.
Well, the weird thing about that is that saying that it's proof in that sense, it doesn't follow, and it doesn't make any sense, especially when if they're going to claim that it's proof of anything, it's like, okay, but how did you come to the conclusion that that was proof of what you're saying? How is this not proof of any other God? How is this not proof of Allah? Because I know that there are some Christians that are like, oh, well, Allah's just the moon god. Okay, well, cool. The moon is not the way that it should be scientifically, so the moon must be supernatural. So how is the moon just not proof of Allah? Okay, let's just undermine your God real quick.
Yeah, I don't get the argument, and this is another part of the interview that I don't have, so I don't really know, the context that I gave that answer. but I'm guessing that I was probably just trying to piss him off.
So he still, even though he said several times, even on this channel last week, said that he would give it to you, he still hasn't.
Oh yeah, I still don't have it. No, and I've asked him a couple times since in the comments, like, you know, you're gonna give me that? Oh yeah, I don't have it.
I'd love to give it to you. Oh, I thought you weren't gay, Matt. Sorry. It's a low blow, but I have to take it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's
they're fun every now and then.
It's like I said, it. You know, he sets it up like you kind of want to make him mad. You know, like, you know, you don't. I don't think none of us knows if Matt is gay, but we know that it makes Matt to say that it makes Matt mad to say that he's gay. Yeah, I get it.
Just like how we went off with last week, I don't want to impose any sexuality that he isn't out there, but at the same time, if you're espousing this kind of hate and then you say things like, yeah, I'll go on an interview with you just as long as you're not gay, then
it's like, how is whether or not you're gay have anything to do?
It makes you want to throw at least one or two low blows down there. Just not sure if it's entirely justified, but
well, I think sometimes you have to throw low blows, but you know, it's with Matt, he just makes it really easy, and you know, like, and I do agree with Skylar, like it's you know, it's his indoctrination, and I'm sure he's been told that, you know, being gay is evil his whole life. You know, so
well,
I'm trying. Like,
they got documentaries on that too. I don't know if you
do this to yourself.
Yeah. One of them's like burned that way after all, and ate the judgment of. Yeah, it's really bad.
It's gross.
And, you know, I do want to point out real quick, because Matt is really bothered that I proved him to be dishonest. He got on the video that I proved that he misedited me. And just like I said today, he sent me an email really justifying. I mean, it was kind of sleazy. And he's really, really bothered that. I mean, he's honestly bothered that none of us here on this panel believes a thing he says. And that really bothers. It bothers him that I made that video making him look dumb. Like, most of the email I got today was, oh, I made you look really bad. One atheist commented and said that I made you look bad. I mean, he is really bothered that people just doesn't agree with him. And that's egomania. Right. That's Matt Powell, you know.
I kind of want to point out something. You just said that Matt Powell was laughing it off that he made you look bad? I thought he said he didn't misrepresent you in any way.
Well, he still claims that he didn't. But yeah, he sent me an email talking about how, you know, he really just messed me up in this conversation. He took it easy on me, saying that stuff again. But he commented on that video that time I made Matt Powell look stupid. And, you know, it is bothering him that the truth is starting to get out. And it's bothering him that more atheists are starting to see that he misrepresented. All of this is really bothering this kid. And I just wanted to put that out there.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like I should explain something. I know earlier we were talking about this. Yeah, I do hope that there's some part of Matt Powell that can change. And the indoctrination, I know, makes that really hard. But the reason why he's put on the forefront so much is because when Steven Anderson was developing his New Independent Fundamental Baptist, there's a video I'm referencing right now titled Steven Anderson Predicts the New IFB. He says in it that he wants young people of college age to represent his religion so that it brings in more young people. And Matt Powell
sounds like a marketing manager, not a pastor.
Well, exactly. You know, and then they try to put that on us. Like, one of the things that I'm responding to Brett Keane about is he talks about my daughter and how what I'm saying is indoctrinating her, even though she believes in God. And I try to keep her separated from when I'm recording and all of that stuff. Because, you know, my whole thing is I'm not going to indoctrinate my daughter. you know, they say these things because, yes, they're so indoctrinated, and the point is to indoctrinate children. You know, it's very hard to indoctrinate a grown person with a rational thinking mind. You know, it's going to be hard to sell God to that person that's never heard of God before. But a little child, I mean, that's Play-Doh for these people, and they do it intentionally, and then they scream at the atheist, "Oh, you have to do it because we do it, but that means you have to do it." It's one of the things I responded to today, and it makes no sense.
I think the best thing would be to tell Brett to fuck out of your kid's life. But that's just me.
I think that was kind of the terminology I used.
Rage, I'm not sure if you know anything about this, but the best thing to do is to not feed the manatee. Anytime that he's giving him attention, he leaves off of YouTube. And that's what everybody wants, him to just disappear. Don't feed him, he'll go away.
I just made 2 videos.
Well, I guess I can't fault you for giving the manatee snacks. I mean, without him, he'll die.
I literally did not know who this guy was. Like, I thought he was a nothing. I'm like, dude, I don't know who you are. I'm not going to come talk to you. But now, obviously, people know who he is.
Yeah, at one point in time, he had a bit of a following because of his story from ye old YouTube days. But just nowadays, it's like, the plant can just wither and die. Every now and again, somebody will throw him a bone. Kyle threw him a bone on the Non Sequitur show just to call him a homophobic dipshit and tell him to fuck off.
That was beautiful.
And then the minute that Brett tried to get in a word in edgewise there, he just kicked him off and said, "And I've been waiting a year to tell you fuck off, Brett Keane." I was just like, that's perfect.
From what I see, the guy's classic.
A very slow process.
Well, how did it start?
Nobody knows how it started. We know the kind of event that it must have been. We know the sort of event that must have happened for the origin of life.
And what was that?
It was the origin of the first self-replicating molecule.
Right. How did that happen?
I told you we don't know.
So you have no idea how it started?
No. Nor has anybody.
Nor has anyone else.
And I suppose it's possible that you might find evidence for that if you look at the details of biochemistry, molecular biology. You might find a signature of some sort of designer.
Wait a second. Richard Dawkins thought intelligent design might be a legitimate pursuit?
What? No, he did not. That's not. He said he was granting that there's a difference. Oh my God, this is the same shit that I fucking told Matt when he called into the channel. There's a difference between granted that could have been the point of origin. It's saying that you could be right, and it's being humble in that the person presenting could be wrong. That's all. You can't just latch onto that one fucking thing and then say suddenly, does that mean intelligent design is right? Richard Dawkins says so. No, you can't fucking do that.
It kind of reminds me of the meme where the person has the thing and it's like, I made this. The person says, you made this? Look, the guy goes away, he looks at it and goes, I made this.
Oh my God, no.
It kind of reminds me of that.
You can't fucking do that. It is called dishonest to a T.
I often say that God is a very real possibility. As an atheist, does not mean that I don't recognize the possibility of God. But that being said, it is probably one of the least likely of all the possibilities. Like I literally think that our planet was created itself before a God did it.
Yeah, my thing is that I accept the idea that a God could be the case as a matter of probabilities. It's just that I assign such a low probability to it being a deity that it doesn't matter to me. Like,
the possibility is so slow you can just dismiss it.
Yeah, you do grant that premise. It could be God, but let me clarify, because it's not your God. Your God has been disproven time and time again.
Yeah, the God of the Bible could be true. The God of the Bible could be real, but it's certainly not the way it's written in the Bible.
Yeah.
Finger thing, Spinoza's God.
I'm fine with accepting Spinoza's God. I think Spinoza's God is real. Let me just look around. Yeah, I find myself in a universe. Seems pantheism holds.
It's not Spinoza.
No, I said Spinoza. Sorry. It's like, yeah, I think
The creation story is hilarious. Looking into John St. Julian.
the sacred secretion. Yes.
Oh
God. And that designer could well be a higher intelligence from elsewhere in the universe.
That just looks so gross when he just, like, shades everything in green there.
After talking to many atheists about their worldview, I began to wonder where their ideas came from. There is no way that ideas such as aliens creating us, or the world creating itself from nothing, could be drawn through rational thought. I came to the conclusion that they had
Hold on.
Wait, no.
U.S. history.
I think it might be a Barnes and Noble. I think you're right, Sean.
Well, no. He went to Barnes and Noble, and first went to personal growth, and then U.S. history. Like, what does this have anything to do with what the topic is at hand?
That's funny.
He really needs to go back on that other section, though. U.S. history. Finally learn that the dinosaurs weren't there during the Civil War. That'd be really nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, better than thinking that fucking pterodactyls had a hand in the Civil War. Like, oh my God.
Yeah, he posted that picture. He thought it was real.
I mean,
of course he thinks it's real.
That'd be a fun alternative history, but like, it didn't really happen.
Hey, you should have asked him. Do y'all not have Photoshop over there at the NIFB?
I think they're masters of it.
These ideas from someone else. I decided to look at what the modern proponents of atheism were teaching about the origin of life. To my surprise, Lawrence Krauss, Richard Dawkins, and many other leaders of atheism have stated that the world literally created itself from nothing.
Atheism.
Nope. Well, so that's a yes and no type of thing. So there is no leader of atheism, but there are certainly thought leaders that some people follow lockstep behind. There are some atheists that follow so lockstep behind that they don't read the dissertation at the beginning of the God Delusion, where it says that they're not trying to equate God belief with a mental illness, and then say, even Dawkins says that it's a mental illness, and he doesn't say that. I don't think the God Delusion was a particularly great book, but still, it's not... There are some atheists that are very dogmatic about their belief structure. It's like they were fundamentalist and dogmatic when they were theists, and then when they became atheists, all they did was replace God with not God, but then kept, like, all of the thought processes the same. That's a thing that we do see.
Yeah, I agree. There are atheists out there that don't rely on their own intuition and their own conclusions, and that's a huge mistake. I'm going to rely on my gut instinct before I rely on what Richard Dawkins tells me. It's just who I am.
Hell, whenever I became an atheist, I mean, I'll be the first, and you can take this as anecdotal if you like, but whenever I first became an atheist, I did not think about checking sources or checking facts behind what people claim. Mm-hmm. So I fell in with all the Zeitgeist movement.
Yeah. Like when you hear the people that say that, Horus was Jesus was a reinterpretation of Horus, and then you go in and research Horus and realize that they were full of Horus crap. No.
It was because of their claim. That someone, whenever I posted in this atheist group that I'm in on Facebook, they sat there and said, dude, that's a bunch of horse shit. I was like, well, how so? I want to know so that way I can know not to say these
Look
things.
At Wikipedia! A cursory glance! What I did when someone
Yes, I know. So he sat there and said, all he said was, look up Horus. That's all he said was, look up Horus.
When I had this conversation with somebody at one point on a Kik group that I was in, and they posted that meme, and I just went, okay, let's go point by point. I went through the Three Kings, the Star of the East, like all of the comparisons, and I was like, let's just go to fucking Wikipedia. That's fast, that's easy. Let's just go there. Let's do Control F. 3. I see nothing about 3 kings or 3 wise men. Do Control F again. I see nothing about Star of the East. Control F again. Just like Control F-ing every single one of the claims. With like, it's weird that I can't find any of these things on articles about Horus. I wonder why. Maybe Zeitgeist is full of shite. Yeah, Zeitgeist is how you have a bad reason to have a belief. Also,
yes.
Baptist Bigotry Event Horizons says send a little love to the Surus show. Thank you. I enjoy getting love sent to the show. Although as long as it's not sent in like a box of cum-filled chocolates, it's a really awkward way to send love. Please don't do that. I'm not saying it's happened yet, but I'm not denying that it has.
Well, then I guess I know what not to get you for your birthday.
The fact that you were thinking about it bothers me.
Of course, this goes in violation of the very first law of thermodynamics.
You don't know shit about the law of thermodynamics. Shut the fuck up.
If these scientists can't even come up with a worldview that's compatible with the very first law of thermodynamics, why would we listen to anything else they say?
Professor
oh my God,
Hawking
your
claims
God
that the
violates...
Big Bang theory of creation can now be explained.
Yes, you're cutting in and out, frustrated.
Yeah, sorry, I guess I'm on a delay because I hear things afterwards. But all I was trying to say was, like, for instance, the whole entire, and this again is just me personally, but the way I see it is that the God of the Bible is said to have made everything at the very beginning of time, before time, and yet energy itself, by the first law of thermodynamics, is eternal. And so this is one of the biggest things that helped cause the creation of our universe, our galaxies, and yes, even Earth. So in my understanding, that helps disprove the God of the Bible, because that alone there is just energy is eternal.
Can't have something from nothing. We don't claim there was something from nothing. The laws of thermodynamics clearly show that we don't have to.
By science alone, without the need to consider some form of divine intervention.
Does he not realize that the Big Bang Theory, or how it's actually supposed to be called, the theory of universal expansion, was proposed by a Catholic bishop? And that it was an atheist that coined the term Big Bang as a pejorative? Do these people not do an ounce of research? Any at all?
No, they don't.
No.
Because there are laws, such as gravity, the universe can, and will, create itself from nothing.
That's a colloquial nothing. Stop it.
Something I kind of wanted to point out, actually, and this might be pretty relevant. They do a lot of discouraging of access to alternative sources within the new IFB. And that's kind of clearly shown by some of the stuff that I was talking about earlier, not being allowed to go to college, or preferring homeschooling over regular school, and, claiming that these fucking leaders are, leading an atheist religion. The fact that they don't research kind of
it's bothersome.
Does it get under your skin?
Well, yes, but I'm sorry, I didn't phrase this correctly. Obviously, I can't talk today.
It's okay, Sean. We still love you.
What I was trying to say though is that they discourage access from all these other sources. So when they do misrepresent the argument in these sort of documentaries, it's going to fly right over their heads.
So can I just say something? This is completely off topic, but Sean, look down for like half a second, and I'll look back up. Okay, I just wanted to guarantee I was seeing what I was seeing. So every time Sean speaks, because of the way the reflection is going in his glasses, it's like he's one of the badass anime characters that just like flicks the glasses up real quick and goes, "Well, actually." Considering that out of everybody in this panel, you're the one that's researched the NIFB most, I think that's apt.
Yeah.
Every single time Anderson's wrong about something, it's just like, Sean, actually, Anderson.
One of the get my like talking straight today, it would come across a lot better.
True. It's a lot harder to do stuff like this live, though. It really is. It's the only reason that I'm able to do like me and Russ can go do live stuff pretty easy, but Russ does debates and I don't do my videos with a script. So it's easy for me to do things off the cuff because it's natural for me. It's easy for Russ to do things off the cuff because it's natural for him. I know that you work on scripts for your videos, so this is still not your area. And that's fine.
Oh yeah,
It doesn't have
I'm still
to be.
getting used to this, and my performance on Drunken Peasants was kind of subpar and hit me a little bit.
It's all right. Nobody has to be perfect at everything. You're great at scripted videos, and that's all you really need to be. Like, you can be as good at the things you're good at as you possibly can be, and we still love you for it.
One thing I want to note is that they always seem to get the first law of thermodynamics wrong, because when they say that the first law states that energy and matter can either be created or destroyed. Matter, it says nothing about matter, if I'm not mistaken. But the biggest thing is they don't just say created or destroyed. They say created or destroyed by natural means. And the thing is
if it's a scientific theory, then it's apropos by natural means. There's no ifs, ands, or buts.
But the thing is that it doesn't say that. So they're trying to find the wiggle room for their God, and I'm like, that no, you can't just sit there and switch things up and say things the way you want it to, just for you to have wiggle room for your God. Because the very second they say natural means, it's because everything's scientific and it's natural. Then God can do it. No.
He's like, no. Even if God just two gods fucked and the universe exploded out of one of their dicks. Yeah. Congratulations, and they died as a result of it. Okay, cool. Now we have the universe we're in. There's still not a God. Congratulations, I gave you God creating the universe, and you still can come up with Yahweh. What an interesting world we find ourselves in.
All of the curriculum and the whole system is being run and mandated by people who are anti-God. They're not just neutral about God, they're actually anti-God.
Throughout this entire stream with that one phrase. Thank you.
It's us versus them is what it is. It's trying to create a them.
They actually have an agenda to teach atheism.
What?
See? It's not true.
What? Anderson, what? What are you talking about?
Oh my god! He's like an agenda to teach atheism.
I see a group of people out there, but I don't see freaking Eric Hovind like banging his fist anywhere. That scene right there is lacking without Eric Hovind banging his fist and Thunderfoot kicking his throat in.
So, just to kind of debunk this whole weird teaching atheism in the colleges thing, I know it's anecdotal evidence. That's not, representative or anything, but I've had a lot of teachers so far, two specifically, that kind of push their Christian ideology over the material that we learn. Like one psych teacher, for instance, is a Christian, and every once in a while he'll interject with his Christian belief and say that, like, oh, well, because I believe this way, I think it's actually this, but then go on to describe the science. I also had a young earth creationist geology teacher who tried to sell those ideas to us at the beginning of the semester when that happened. But
so I'm going to go ahead and make an argument for the existence of God real quick. And I'm going to ask all of you to try your best to disprove it, okay? Okay, here's my argument for the existence of God.
You know what?
Oh no, I think I'm converted. I love legend.
I can't disprove that. It's Zelda, Link to the Past. No, I can't. Assurance has been the only one who I cannot.
I'm waiting for Link to come
for
back
the existence of God.
Orange Ganon.
There's my argument for the existence of God. Only a God who created a perfect universe could have created a universe where this exists.
I mean, well done. You know what?
We're all in a Powell video.
But now we need to figure out which god this is, so that way we can personally think.
Yeah, I didn't say which one it was. I didn't say which one it was at all, and I think that causes some problems.
Yes.
Oh. Well.
So now you've gotten several different denominations that are saying it's the god Ganon.
It's the god Ganon.
No, it's the god this. It's the god that.
So I have to create.
It was the three fairies.
So I have to create extra denominations. Okay, cool. I can do that. Give me just a second here. Second premise as to why God exists, and this is where you're going to get your other denominations from.
Oh my goodness!
Banjo-Kazooie?
That is Banjo-Kazooie.
Oh my god!
I played the second one, but I heard that one's good too.
Oh my god! You have not played the original Banjo-Kazooie.
The original Banjo-Kazooie is way better than Tooie. It is. It's a more well refined game.
Yeah,
like, Tooie's good.
I couldn't play GoldenEye for a little while growing up, so like Banjo-Kazooie was like our alternative to GoldenEye because they have that like feature. That's exactly...
they had the multiplayer feature, and instead of Odd Job, you played as Jinjo.
Exactly, it was great.
They literally teach in the science class that the whole world created itself from nothing.
Wait a minute. Did they just try to say that was a symbol for atheism? I'm fairly certain. That
was a fork, right?
That's Alabama.
Yeah, that's not a symbol for atheism. That's Alabama, sir.
Oh,
that's where Ken Hovind lived. That's not a symbol for atheism. That's the home of Dr. Dino.
Well, to some people, Roll Tide is God.
Oh my god!
Oh my god! That was amazing.
I wanted to argument against the existence of God. Roll Tide. Okay, cool. I didn't realize that I was going to get to the point where apologetics was going to give me an aneurysm, but I think we found a special type of aneurysm called an Andersism. Oh my gosh. Please just hurt me in lots of ways so that I can forget any of this happened. That would be great.
The world created itself from nothing, which is stupidity and foolishness.
I love hearing the yes in the background.
But this is the kind of folly that comes out of the mouth of a fool. Only a stupid person would say, oh, the whole...
Say what you want about Lawrence Krauss. Say what you want about any of the drama that he's been embroiled in. But as far as individuals that I would count smarter than you, Anderson, he's one of them.
The whole world just created itself.
I don't know too much about Krauss, but I have to imagine he's a little smarter than Anderson.
Yeah, being any type of physicist would make you smarter than Anderson. It just so happens.
Every once in a while.
What's really funny about this is, like, why is he so worked up about this? Dude looks like he's having a hemorrhoid.
So I lived in Tucson, Arizona for a little while, a couple of years, and the university out there, I'm pretty sure Lawrence Krauss taught at, and I only recently found out that Steven Anderson has been making regular appearances there.
Oh my god.
For going on like 10 years. So they're actually in like close quarters, and that's kind of fun to think about. But
that's depressing.
Yeah, he's also poisoning people's minds in college. That's not good.
He's poisoning the intellectual waters and turning the theists gay.
I just want to point out one thing, was that when Anderson was talking during the last bit of that, what he was talking, he said what he said, and then everyone said there, yeah, but then there's that one guy who said, that's right.
That's right. I don't like Krauss. That's right.
That's right.
From nothing.
I'm just wondering if you guys ever like had a conversation with each other and how that would play out.
Anderson's not going to have a conversation with me.
I meant Krauss.
Oh, you wouldn't have a conversation with Krauss either. I know
Probably
at least he won't have one with me because he's left me on red.
Oh, you've messaged Anderson?
Oh, I have the screenshot of the message where I challenged him to a debate on Non Sequitur Show. He left me on red.
That would have been beautiful.
I desperately wanted to. I wanted to basically go in with an entire list of the exegeted, like, actual meanings behind some of the shit he says, because he's a biblical literalist, which means he's an idiot.
Yeah.
Like, just going through and showing what the Greek and Hebrew versions of these actually meant, and just going, hey, look, buddy, I have a question. Basically doing what Inspiring Philosophy did to Kent Hovind. That's what I wanted to do to Anderson, is go in with the actual historical context of what a lot of these articles said, to show him that he doesn't know jack about what he's talking about. Because anybody who's a KJV onlyist is, sorry, this is going to throw a lot of Christians under the bus, but if you're a KJV onlyist, you're either indoctrinated or a moron. I would hope you're just indoctrinated. But in the case of Anderson, I'm gonna go with moron.
Me too. It's funny because if they were to ever get together, I can see it now. Lawrence Krauss would be like, "So what's your problem with this?" And Anderson would lay out his case, and I could almost see Krauss just being like, "Okay, guy, I'm done. Just bye. This isn't even worth my time."
Yeah.
You don't believe it, you're uneducated. I mean, how ridiculous is it to think, oh, see everything that you see here? The whole universe? Guess what? It all just created itself out of nothing. There's no God. Well, where did this stuff come from? Oh, it exploded. What exploded? I don't know, nothing.
It's only an explosion if we're calling it the Big Bang and using bang to mean explosion. It's not... Theory of universal expansion does not talk about an exploding nothing. Stop.
No, the thing is there was indeed nuclear reaction happening at the during that time frame, but all the rest of the universe did was just expand. There wasn't anything that exploded. You can't even have an actual explosion in space.
Well, there's not even, and it's not so much an explosion as it was an inflation. Inflation was like the first few microseconds after t equals 0. That's not an explosion. It may seem like one if you're uneducated. I think that's kind of where I'm going, and that seems to be the case. But
this was a part of our discussion that I felt like Matt got me a little bit, and it's because I did embrace explosion, and that's particularly because I just hadn't studied it since I was in school. So, like, when I was in school back then, they were teaching, Big Bang, explosions. I had an understanding that it wasn't quite what he was trying to say, but I did a bad job of embracing the terminology he was using. But an expansion is exactly right. I've researched it since, and what I learned in school 20 years ago obviously isn't accurate any longer.
Well, that's the funny thing about science.
The fact that, and the thing is that terminology is, even if you didn't know that it was expansion, not explosion, that little tiny detail, to be honest, when it comes to the accuracy of the entire theory, is irrelevant, because you can see it as an explosion if you want to. You can tell them this. You can see it as an explosion if you want to, even though it's not.
Well, considering that we're not freaking astrophysicists, we don't have to be that precise.
So you can say explosion's fine for the use of this conversation, and then just continue on with the rest of the evidence for the expansion.
Yeah, and that's one thing, like, they don't take into account. Like, I don't claim to be 100% knowledgeable. I often claim I'm just a normal dude. Another example of this happened to me not too long ago. I was having a conversation at work, and people were telling me that blood isn't blue. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Blood is blue. That's what I've always known my whole life. And then I get home and I researched it, and sure as shit, blood isn't blue. And there's just this difference. Like, sometimes it's hard to take away what you learned as a child and what you know now. And you're not going to get everything right, and they will seize on those opportunities.
Somebody in the chat is bringing up something important I feel like I need to share. Infinity 730, he brought this up. We got to remember that these documentaries, especially the Science Falsely So-Called that we're going through right now, it's not meant to convince anyone. It's really only meant to reinforce the beliefs of their members and maybe tug in a couple of the very gullible Christians that are out there. I'm not trying to say that all Christians are gullible. I know a lot of them do accept the theory of evolution and all that good stuff, but that doesn't mean to say that there aren't people that can't be dragged in by this kind of information. It's just got to remember it's mostly for their people.
Yeah, but that makes it worse to me.
Yeah.
That makes it worse. The in-group indoctrination makes it far worse to me than that.
I was reading a news article, and Richard Dawkins came out and said, "I cannot condemn mild pedophilia."
Richard Dawkins has made some statements that some are considering to be a little bit odd. He essentially defended mild pedophilia.
A man who in one breath says if you meet a Christian, mock him openly in public, and yet in the next breath he'll say, oh, well, you know, I really can't condemn mild pedophilia.
Can you give us the actual quote that he said, please? I'm hoping they use the actual quote.
I don't see anything wrong with it because it was a different time. You know, the Bible stands true over time. Sure, we believe that.
So slavery's cool. Got it.
The earth is 6,000 years old. Your mainstream speaker believes that it's okay to inappropriately touch.
Dawkins is not my mainstream speaker. He's not Nagatsuchi's mainstream speaker. He's not Russ's mainstream speaker. He's not Sean's mainstream speaker.
Children, and openly accepts that it's okay. But yet we're the crazy ones. We're the crazy ones for thinking that the reason there are seashells at the top of Mount Everest is because of the flood. And
that's because you're dumb. That's not why they're there. Could you please provide... You've said this quote about pedophilia over and over again. Could you please provide the quote?
Noah.
With all the fucking quote mining, this movie's done.
They don't.
As I continued my research,
they seriously don't? They just leave that there?
Yeah, they don't include it.
No. Freaking no. Quote about... Let's see here. Let's find this.
This is something that Matt liked to talk about a lot. Even in our first conversation, he brought this up. And from what I've read, what I've looked at it, it's just not true. Like, he makes some inane reference that people are trying to say is pedophile. I couldn't find too much about it.
Okay, no. The quote that he said was, I am very conscious that you can't condemn people of an earlier era by the standards of ours, just as we don't look back at the 18th and 19th centuries and condemn people for racism the same way as we would condemn a modern person for racism. I look back a few decades to my childhood and see things like caning, like mild pedophilia, and can't find it in me to condemn it by the same standards as I or anyone would today. So there's part of this I agree with and part of this I don't agree with. One, I think you can condemn certain things because the harm of an innocent is the harm of an innocent regardless of age. That's my stance. I would still condemn it because that didn't magically become... We didn't magically learn in the last 100 years that touching children was wrong. That's been kind of a societal standard, at least in the United States, for ages. I'm fairly certain it was a societal standard in the UK as well for ages. So I disagree with Dawkins there, but that is not him espousing the idea of pedophilia, which is what they're trying to make it out to be. That's not what that means. That's him saying that people from an earlier age, we can't judge them by our standards because, like, for instance, today, we understand that slave labor is not efficient. We understand that it's something that we shouldn't do for humanitarian reasons, and it's just not efficient because when people are working, if they don't feel like they're gaining something for their work, psychology pretty much shows us they're not going to do their due diligence in their work, even if they're fearing for their lives. They're going to do what they need to survive. That's it. So yes, we do have more knowledge today that tells us why these things are the way they are and why they don't operate the way that people thought they operated back then. That's not the same thing as espousing that. That's not saying, oh no, pedophilia was okay back then. Slavery was okay back then. No, we're not saying it was okay ever. We're saying that we can't cast judgment and say that they were all horrible people for doing what seemed to be correct to them at the time. That's not the same thing. But this is the same person who came onto my show and thought that engaging in a hypothetical meant that I just agreed that God exists. So, of course he's going to get shit like this wrong.
Yeah,
Sorry, I had to go on a rant.
No, and I agree. I hate it when people say, "Oh, that's just how it was back then," or you can't hold America to account for slavery because that's just how it was back then. No, the hell you can't. You can still hold America to account. You can be aware of what true history is. And you're right. Like, pedophilia has been looked down upon at least since Muhammad was alive. Because if you research the whole Muhammad pedophilia thing, it looks like that was a propaganda campaign by the Quraysh tribe to discredit Muhammad. So even back then, it was something considered so atrocious that you could bring down the prophet of God. So, I disagree with Richard Dawkins, but I totally agree that Richard Dawkins is not by any means endorsing pedophilia.
No, and yet that's how they want to... That's why they can't provide that quote. This is the one quote that they're referencing hard and spending more than a minute on in this movie, but they're not going to provide it. It takes me 2 seconds to look it up and show that it doesn't say the things that they say it does. And they know it doesn't say that, because otherwise they would have freaking shown it.
Atheism.
Yeah, and one of the biggest things is that we also... Oh, sorry. I was just saying that one of the biggest things that we have to also remember is that these are the same people who will do this and then also scream out of context when we read a certain Bible verse.
They'll scream out of context, but we can look at the actual context behind most of that stuff and find that it says what we think it says.
And notice that they're not talking about all of the pedophilia in their church or in the Christian religion itself.
All the pedophilia in the old IFB and
yes
principles
Unfortunately,
that are based on science.
Is determine whether or not the pedophilia stuff is happening in the new IFB. However, I do want to point out that, especially since that Donnie Romero controversy in the new IFB survivors group, people that have been lucky enough to escape that cycle of indoctrination and hell, as they plainly put it, a lot of them have been talking about the new IFB people. So,
well,
Stephen
not only that, but
Romero
there's also a rumor about Romero that it's rumors in some of the NIFB's YouTube chats in their comment sections of people who've claimed Romero had sexually misconduct with underage people. Now, again, these are rumors. These are people who were within the NIFB themselves who are rumoring this. So take it with a grain of salt. But there are rumors that it's going on. So with the rumors going on and the fact that you have people who are out speaking against the NIFB, I would say it's probably a matter of time before something along those lines does end up coming up.
Well, I've researched this quite extensively, and not with the new IB themselves, but just religion across the board. If you look at the numbers, not only pedophilia, but rape, sexual indiscretions of all kinds are up across the board if you look at religious communities. But in regards to Christianity itself, they always try to put it just on Catholics. We hear about the Catholics. But by my research, evangelical Christianity has just as high of a rate as pedophilia as the Catholic Church does. You just do not hear about it.
Yeah.
Who was it recently that published like a whole thing about the sexual misconduct within the old IFB? Was it Star Telegram?
Yes,
I know,
Star Telegram.
I know some other news organizations have picked up this, but they're not super big.
Yeah,
It'd be cool if Washington
Telegram.
Post something like somebody like that would cover the story. I mean, I feel like it should be out there, but
Yeah, so the Star Telegram, it had leaked. It had made an article about it where I think it was like 146 accounts of sexual misconduct, ranging from all sorts of different sexual activity with minors. And they've also uncovered, I think, 21 themselves just by doing the report. Just by researching everything.
Wow.
I mean, it's usually rampant through most of these communities, and it's just something that's not talked about. I've done a lot of work on this. I've done especially a lot of work on sexual harassment and rape and genocide in Native American reservations. But I have looked at the correlation of religion and these types of crimes, and people try to say that there's no correlation there. But if you look at the data that's available, and there's not enough data that's available, we really need to find out what's going on in our society. But if you look at the data that is available, there is a direct correlation. And I tell everybody all the time, like, if you don't want your child to be sexually molested, don't go to church.
Sean, actually, one of in the Star Telegram, you know who one of the perpetrators are?
No.
One of the perpetrators is actually the son of Jack Hyles.
Aha! Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. No, the Jack Hyles, I'm not sure if he was like the founder of the old IFB, but I know he was a huge prominent member. Most of the he was a real big push on the Bible colleges. I think I know he owns Hyles Anderson. And Hyles Anderson College, by the way, Stephen Anderson went to. I have no idea whether or not he's related to the Anderson in the college name. However,
it wouldn't be surprising.
Yeah, it wouldn't be surprising, but at the same time, he was still affiliated with a college that has its own survivors group on Facebook because of all of the mistreatment and stuff that went on to that organization.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and see how much further we can get.
Yeah.
Science fiction instead of factual and testable data.
Sorry, I had to pause because the stupid broke me for a minute.
It's hard to argue against the possibility that all of us are not just the creation of some kid in a parent's basement programming up a world.
What's up?
For their own
I'm just pointing out
and then
that he's proposing a hypothetical situation. He's not saying that this is actually happening.
Yeah,
they're going to
which is usually the case.
Time something weird happens in the world, some disruptive leader takes charge, and I wonder if that programmer's just got bored.
As I studied Neil deGrasse Tyson, I found that his views on reality are based solely on science fiction instead of observable reality.
No,
his
that's
views
a
are
fucking
the
hypothetical.
equivalent to that of movies like The Matrix and Star Wars.
Now you're a character in that world, and
theory.
It's painful considering that it's easy when somebody's talking about a hypothetical to just clip that and say that this is what they think. No, it's not.
I just want to say, with all the shit Matt Powell did, he misrepresented me. He's been in my feed nonstop. And I think the most egregious thing he's ever done is talk shit about Neil deGrasse Tyson. This is my hero.
It's like with Neil, it's the same issue as with Lawrence Krauss. You can hold issue with some of the stuff that they've said or done, but it doesn't make them not smart. And especially when it comes to people like Anderson and Powell, it doesn't make them infinitely less smart than you. No, they're infinitely more smart than Anderson is.
Neil deGrasse Tyson's recent accusations of sexual harassment has done a lot to tarnish my image of him. He's still one of my favorites, and I'm waiting for the evidence to come in before I just condemn one of my favorite atheists. But Neil deGrasse Tyson, for me, when it comes to the ancient astronaut theory, is the one that got me away from that as an early atheist. I trusted him, and if he's going to tell me that it's not aliens, I'm going to believe Neil deGrasse Tyson.
You think you have free will? You say, I want to invent a computer, so you do. Hey, I want to create a world in my computer. And then that world creates a world in its computer. And then you have simulations all the way down.
I mean, it's ridiculous. But literally, because people have such a desire to just kind of fit in and not question things, they will literally go along with it to the point of, you mean you don't believe in the Big Bang? It's like the Emperor's new clothes. You remember the fable of the Emperor's new clothes? Remember, the Emperor is naked, okay? And they tell everybody, oh, he has these new clothes and they're so beautiful, and everybody talks about how great they are. And, you know, you can only see them if you're wise, though. And of course, the guy's nude, but everybody pretends that they see it, even though nobody sees it because it isn't there.
If I was to come out and say I have faith in the Bible, I'm mocked, and Richard Dawkins has said mock Christians openly in public.
He wasn't looking at the camera, and it was kind of bugging me.
And yet somebody wants to believe that out of nowhere, nothing created something, and over billions of years, here we are.
Neil deGrasse Tyson recently came out and he stated that he believes we're in a computer machine. He says he believes that we're part of somebody's video game system.
Oh, it's a hypothetical, you Nimrod.
So it could be a video game system, but not God. You know, Richard Dawkins came out and said, oh yeah, I believe it's possible that we could have had aliens put us here. So he's saying that aliens could have created us, but not God. Stephen Hawking, there was an article that was written about him, and they say Hawking has stated that given the vastness of the universe, aliens likely exist. Notice what the writers also say about him. They say he was also becoming more intuitive and speculative rather than relying on mathematical proofs. So
that's because there's a mathematical proof for a lot of things, but you have to understand that if we have an entire universe with just 6 Earth-like planets. We have more than 6 Earth-like planets, but let's go ahead and say that there's only 6 in the universe. It would stand to reason that by seeing just a little bit of green on one of those planets, we can assume that there's some form of life there, even if it's still microbial. There's still some form of life on there. That life is not originated on Earth. It is, by every definition, alien life. That's a perfectly reasonable position because it's something that we can see through telescopes. Like, that's...
If I'm not mistaken, now there's some debate among this particular topic, but there was a meteor that had struck Earth that these scientists went and investigate, and they actually found within it not only moss, but
wasn't it like frozen water?
They found that. They found moss, and within all this, they found the God. What is the name of the stuff that the
Eukaryotes?
Yeah, I'm trying
amino
to
acids. Amino acids.
Yes, amino acids. They so they found all this type of stuff on this meteor, and again, there's some debate. Some people who are against it say that you don't know. They didn't know if it was due to the environment that's around it, but a lot of it was stuff that hasn't been seen on Earth since like pre-Cambrian time frame. And so it was very, very it was something very, very significant that they found. But they're still trying to figure all of that out. And
definitely
so
the right direction. They found amino acids. It's not exactly life, but pretty close.
Yeah. So they
I don't think they found moss though.
I don't remember. I thought that they might have, but they have found things like Sarah said, like frozen water and things like that.
If it was, moss would have been like finding amino acids on something means nothing if you found moss. Once you found moss, you have found a form of life.
Yeah.
But we're going to. I don't know how much longer we have until we hit the Kent Hovind seminar.
3 minutes.
3 minutes.
2.5.
Hawking point blank admits that he was becoming more intuitive and speculative rather than relying on mathematical proofs. Steve Hawking said that he was becoming more intuitive and speculative.
I love how they
about
just
science
repeat this over and
rather than
over
relying on
again.
mathematical proofs. In order for something to be science, it has to be demonstrable, testable, and provable. So if I came up to you and said,
It doesn't have to be provable. That's not. That's. Stop it.
Nakasuchi, I want to be more intuitive about my science.
Provable has nothing
I want to
to
be more speculative. Is that science?
No.
Falsified.
No, I would say no.
Yeah, falsifiable, not provable.
After doing my research, I've come to the conclusion that most atheists don't even know that their worldview goes directly against the very first law of thermodynamics.
Stop saying that. You don't know what that law even is.
No, you don't.
In this film, we have only touched the tip of the iceberg regarding the evidence for the biblical account of creation. The theory of evolution has been disproven time and time again by true science. Before this theory even came out, God's word warned us that these lies would come about. The Bible clearly tells us to avoid
those are the pictures of the embryos
and oppositions of science, falsely so called.
Underlined in frickin' fine-tipped black ink.
That's to make sure that you know they mean business.
Yeah, please use a highlighter. Those pages are very thin. Problem of evil.
Yeah.
We're gonna talk about my area. Okay.
I was wrong about the timing. I don't know how long this segment goes.
Being Johnny's father was a huge blessing. Johnny was
Let's see how far we can get without
really
pausing.
Burden,
We might be able to
although
do it.
we had our problems, we had our trials with him, but being his dad was a huge blessing. Johnny taught me more than I could ever have taught him in his entire lifetime. He taught me patience.
Oh boy, the appeal to emotion.
He taught me,
Aren't you sad? This is the part where you're supposed to be
people
sad.
Unconditionally, because that's how he loved us. And he taught us great faith. Johnny had a great relationship with God. And he was a young man that really believed in the power of prayer. He prayed.
Oh my gosh. This video is going to get demonetized because that's Bud Askins is showing that's the theme from Castaway. I wanted to do this without pausing, but apparently I'm going to have to just to avoid a copyright strike.
Yes, I'm so filled
he was
with.
He was a blessing. He was my buddy, and I thank God for the opportunity and the privilege to be his dad.
Do you wonder if Matt actually credited the movie Castaway or the theme? Like, did he credit this properly? Pretty sure he didn't.
He didn't credit the Earth Tankle clips either, did he?
No, I don't think so. No.
We always had an extra measure of God's grace. I'll never forget when Johnny was born. I was in the operating room and they showed us Johnny and whisked him off to intensive care and escorted me out of the operating room, the delivery room, and brought me into the locker room and told me to change out of my scrubs, get in my street clothes, and the doctor would meet me in the waiting room when he was done working with Joanne, my wife. And I remember leaning against the lockers, tears just streaming down my face, and saying, God, I can't do this. I can't do this. I need your grace and I need your strength.
So how is any of this? What does this have to do with the problem of evil?
I have a wife that needs a husband.
If anything,
what does this have to do with any of the movie?
If anything, what I'm getting from this
that
is that you had a son who was born with a disability, and that's sad.
Get us through whatever comes our way.
But that doesn't have anything to do with the problem of evil. In fact, actually, it's evidence that your God fucked over your son.
Confidence and great joy that God heard that locker room prayer that day.
You don't want to walk down this road.
For over 30 years, the Lord's blessed us with an extra measure of His grace, and that's really where our peace and our strength came from. Time after time in intensive care waiting rooms, in operating waiting rooms, in emergency rooms. I would look over at my wife.
What's funny is that we could take this entire series of clips and we could put ominous music over it and then just do a voiceover how God screwed over a child, and it would have a completely different message.
To experience the grace of God. And
do the same thing by saying, "Oh, that was medical science."
Because it was
medical science is the only reason that your God actually didn't kill a kid.
By our God, And that's where that strength and that peace comes from. That's how we endured the surgery after surgery, and then even Johnny's homegoing. God's grace strengthened us. And when Johnny passed away, my wife was in Atlanta, Georgia, visiting our other children. Our other son just had a baby. And when Johnny passed away, I was here alone. He was in his bedroom. He had gotten up, got dressed, made his bed, and was heading out to start his day. And his heart gave out, and he collapsed on the floor. And when I found him on the floor, it was the worst moment of my entire life.
And it would have been God's fault by definition.
I've never felt in my life. There were sounds coming out of me that I've never heard before. And as I held his body close to my heart, and I wept.
Well, then you've never actually had hardship before in your life, because those are sounds that you would have been very familiar with.
Because
Sorry, that's
Johnny
probably an
had wanted
anecdote.
to go home to be with the Lord. He had prayed for the last year and a half that God would take him home. Because
It almost sounds like
Wait a minute! Wait a minute! Hold on.
Yeah.
Did
Okay,
he just
before
say
you go
that his son prayed for a year and a half for suicide?
Pretty much
wrong. Stop it.
By the way, this whole entire section of this appeal to emotion is labeled, the problem of evil. I just posted in the chat a few seconds ago. Isaiah 45:7. I form the light and create darkness. I make peace and create evil. I, the Lord, do all these things. King James Version. So it's accurate for them.
Sorry, my cat seems to have shredded part of my headphones, and now I need to fix them.
Nah.
I love my cats. A subscriber, Clade Starfish, actually sent me a very good pair of headphones that it took my cat all of no time to destroy. Yeah, not very terribly happy about that.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
Yeah. Anyway, continue. Sorry.
But yeah, so according to their own King James Bible that they love so much, even in there, God said he created evil. So the problem of evil relies on your God.
I would also say that this is where the Euthyphro dilemma comes in. Are the things that are good because God wills them, or are they good because they're good? And it just so happens that God wills things that are good. In one instance, the good is arbitrary, and in the other one, your God is arbitrary.
Yep.
I don't know. We'll just continue with this appeal to emotion for as long as it goes, but I'm pretty sure it's going to sit here and, this is the part of the movie that's supposed to make people remember that this movie exists, because it's utterly forgettable otherwise. Let's go.
And at that brief moment, grief and joy came together. And they came together because Johnny's prayers were answered. And he was home with the Lord. He was whole.
This is the part that I find disgusting. Sorry, I have to pause it again, but it's disgusting to me when it's like, I was so happy that my son was finally dead.
Me too.
Yeah.
I was just thinking the same thing. Like, he's talking about God's grace. I mean, is it God's grace that your son wanted to die for a year and a half before he actually did? And you're going to sit there and talk about happiness that your son is gone now? I mean, to me as a father, that it's disgusting. I mean, I would not want my child gone. My child is supposed to see me gone. Not. It's just disgusting.
Yeah. Agreed.
It's painful. Also, we have another super chat from Event Horizon, Baptist Bigotry. I routinely defeat Christians just on Genesis, the fig story, and other Bible nonsense. Who else has these techniques down? I'm just a beginner atheist. I think that they are the most effective attacks. And I find that the philosophical stuff is nice, but obviously you don't have to go that route.
Baptist Bigotry has been commenting on my page lately. There's some pretty good comments there. I wanted to holler out to him. Good comments, dude.
Awesome. I'm a fan of Event Horizon. Me and him have had email correspondence before. Event Horizon and Baptist Bigotry are the same person, by the way. But he's actually sent me videos of the NIFB stuff that I've done some video responses to. And I need to catch up on some of his stuff. It's just there's been other videos on my channel that have to be done as well. So it's just like, I want to get to these because I don't like these guys.
His body was whole. And in my heart, I thought, run, Johnny, run. Run, enjoy heaven. Your faith became sight. And I just remember just at that moment, and it didn't last long, but for that brief time, there was some joy in my heart for him. And that can only happen by the grace of God and by knowing Jesus Christ as your Savior and having the hope of heaven.
I feel bad for your son, and I feel bad for you, but like
what it
the
was like
manipulation
being Johnny's
tactic
dad.
isn't cool.
And get strength.
I'd really
that
prefer
God
if you
gave us through
didn't do that. But Matty Poo doesn't understand that.
I feel less bad for him if he give the doctors some credit.
Yeah, giving the doctors enough credit that they kept you alive would be great. This is the same thing that I dealt with when my grandpa was in the hospital. Is everybody saying that, oh God this, oh God that, and I'm like, no, the doctors did everything in their power to keep Grandpa alive.
Oh, okay. All right.
Oh!
See, this is what happens.
For the Bible way.
Oh my gosh, we hit it.
Way to heck.
It's gonna be. I remember now. It's gonna be Kent Hovind, whatever, doing his thing, and then right afterward, it's the Bible way to heaven. It's their soul winning through video.
I hate soul winning shit's just disgusting. What? Didn't say anything.
Gutsman!
Yeah, he actually commented on my one of my videos where I use the. It's like, I don't like how you edited my.
He's like, don't use my cover, okay?
Hey guys,
Like, I thought it was.
I gotta run and pick up my daughter's insulin prescription.
That's
It was good talking to you guys, and I appreciate you letting me come back on.
Yeah, and we actually managed to finish the movie because everything else after this is fluff.
Yeah,
Can't hold
if you're going to continue to do this or something else on Monday, I think I have till February 10th. It looks like, but yeah, just hit me up.
Yep, yeah. I'll see what we can get done in, but I know that this is at least the last Science Falsely So Called episode.
Yeah. Honestly, I think I'm gonna have to go too, though, just so I can make it to school on time, make sure I'm not late, all that good stuff.
Well, that's perfect. Perfect timing. We're done.
Yeah.
We're done with the movie at the time that everybody has to hop out. It took us 6 episodes.
Yes.
It was a good one. I appreciate it, y'all.
So I'm glad that we're through with the Matt Powell stuff, but at the same time, it's just sad that we're not going to be doing this. Not going to be debunking his stuff.
Yeah. Oh, we'll figure something else out. I mean, I'm still going to have Mondays as a live stream day. It's just a matter of what I'm going to be live streaming during that time. We'll figure something out, and if it involves guests, then I'll bring guests on. If it doesn't involve guests, then yeah, we'll figure something out. But
there we go.
This has been interesting.
If we're gonna keep a focus on the NIFB, I do have tons of documentaries we can go over. I mean, there's sermons and stuff too. It might be nice to do something like that, especially considering I, for some reason, haven't been able to get my frickin' new IFB video out.
Sean just doesn't want to lose a spot on my channel on Mondays.
I don't. It's a lot of fun coming on here. Also, it's the only way I've been able to get any of that new IFB calling out stuff out there. I feel like they need to get talked about because of all the bad ideas that they're spreading.
Yeah,
but
I just haven't. I need to get my video out too.
Yeah, it's just my move and stuff right now. Like, what's it called? I ended up not being able to stay where I thought I was going to stay at, and not going to get into the details as to why. I mean, I obviously have a place and everything's fine, but yeah.
Well, you went over all that in your last video.
Yeah. So hopefully I should be able to like film and stuff soon. It just takes a lot more time, and the streams are easy to do.
Well, and you're always able, since you've taken part in all of these, you're always able to repost these on your channel if you want. Like, you know, by all means, if you want to do it to fill out content, do it.
Yeah, that'd honestly be really cool. I might do that. I know I especially need to what's it called? Put up that mirror of the Godless Iowan guest video I did a little while back.
I was wondering why that wasn't on your channel yet.
Yeah.
But you need to get yourself so you're not late.
Yeah, I really need to start putting stuff up.
Yeah, you should probably go ahead and do that.
I think I'll upload it right here after school.
All right.
When I get home.
Well, I definitely appreciate you coming on, John. It's been fun and it's been a journey.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Man. And it's cool to hang out with one of like the people I've looked up to before starting my channel and all that good stuff.
You know,
take it from
you're welcome.
Working with people you're a fan of, it's kind of awesome.
Oh, trust me, every time I've gotten a chance to work with, like even Godless Iowan is one of the people I look up to, even though like my channel's larger than his now and larger than like Prophet of Zod, they're still the people that I look up to in the community. So I'm still excited anytime I get to do things with them.
I think I got the same thing kind of going on with Tatted Atheist because I really like the content that he does, and I think he does it a lot better than I do, but he's lower on the subs than me. Sub to Tatted Atheist, everybody, unless he's still going by Tatted Philosophy. I'm not sure.
I think he's going by Tatted Philosophy still.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that said, hope you guys enjoyed it in the chat. It's been one hell of a journey. I know Skylar Fiction was only able to be here for an hour. Nagatsuchi was able to be here for almost everything. Go ahead and sub to Sean, the Atheist Rationale. Sub to Russ, the Frustrated Atheist. Nagatsuchi, the Raging Atheist. Sub to Skylar Fiction. And if you haven't subbed to literally everybody else that we've had on the show so far, talking about Matt Powell's movie, go to the older episodes, find those links, and do it. Every content creator who has been a part of this endeavor deserves extra love.
Except for Matt Powell. He was on stream last week. Don't count him.
Shannon Q says, and me, obviously, sub to me. Yes, go sub to Shannon Q. You can actually hit the 3 dots next to her name and hit go to channel, and you can sub to her as well. That's a thing you can and should do, because I may have accidentally sent her down a warpath talking about Christian psychology. Shannon said, sir, it's past me, and that's garbage.
If you want to go over, I might send you their documentaries on mental illness, Shannon Q. I think you might get a kick out of that, or it might piss you off. Either way,
that's gonna do both.
And the thing is Shannon Q was not part of this series, but you know, is she not part of a little bit of all of our channels?
This is true. Shannon's actually been very helpful when it comes to research for certain. I remember when I was doing the video on the Shroud of Turin. Shannon was the primary person that helped me and sent me articles on the Shroud so that I could get all my information together and straight for that video. So, if anything, please go sub to Shannon. Although, now that Shannon has successfully made this last few minutes of the video the Shannon dick-sucking contest.
All right. I'm going to go for reals now, guys. Thanks a lot. Bye.
See ya.
But I would like to point out that Riley in the chat says, we need to beat T-Series.
Oh my god.
We need to beat T-Series.
I would, if I even had close to enough subs to officially fight T-Series or PewDiePie, all of my dreams would be realized like that.
Whoa. Now, don't go after the king now.
Don't go after the king.
Yeah, you can't go after the PewDiePie.
It's okay. I don't need Alex Jones to shout out my channel every other week.
Oh my god.
This has been fun. I have enjoyed every minute of this. I especially enjoyed getting that Matt Powell cameo in last time.
Oh my god, that was amazing. Just amazing.
But with that said, that's definitely it. I can't think of anything else to say.
All good things must come to an end.
And this series has reached its end. Everything after this is, if you want to see the last 20 minutes of this movie where it's just him talking about how you can be saved, go right ahead. I'm not going to stop you. Be whatever religion you want to be. Just please don't hurt people. Like, that's all I care about.
The only 2 things I always ever say that I care about is don't hurt people, and you accept the science.
I don't say accept the science. Do your due diligence. Do the research on the science, and when you find out that it's right, come back to me.
Yes.
I don't ask you to accept shit.
Well, I guess I do misspeak there. When I mean accept the science, the thing is if you are not the type of person where science is particularly your forte, then at least accept the general consensus on this.
Oh yeah, if you're going to accept the word of your pastor, then at least accept the word of a scientist. Accept the 2 in their fields of expertise. That said, that's going to be the last thing I say on air.